Hello, it's Adrian here from Arcade Attack, and I thought it would be quite fun if I ran through my top 10 most underrated Amiga games of all time, the games that maybe didn't get all the love from the critics in the past, and some of the more obscure games I really adored playing as a kid. So guys, if you like my choices, please comment below. Number 10 on my list is Beach Volley, made in 1989 by Ocean Software. I adored playing this game with my brothers. It's so addictive, so bright, so colourful, and it's quite easy to pick up and play, but difficult to master. The story is really simple. You are approached by a stranger. He gives you the opportunity to take part in the Beach Volley Cup. If you take on the challenge, basically the rules are very simple. The first person to get to 7 points wins, and then you get to the next stage, which is different beach volleyball courts all around the world. You go to America, Africa, China. It is so fun how you just shoot around the world to take part in this amazing tournament. Every hosting country will be introduced with a little humorous skit, which is usually related to their sites or locations. The winner of this competition will receive $250,000. Beach Volley was the first Ocean France product and one of the first Ocean games to be aimed directly at the Amiga and Atari ST audience. You can play single player, but for me the game really came to life when you played two player. It still is fun today. Check it out, Beach Volley on the Amiga. And the ninth game on my list is Hunter, made in 1991 by Activision. This open world 3D game really did impress me as a kid. I couldn't quite believe my Amiga was allowing me to go where I wanted in a fully 3D environment. We've given so much freedom within the game, it is incredible. The whole point of the game is you are a soldier and you have to take on various missions. These can range from assassinations to demolition efforts. The game also provides so many vehicles to take control of, from simple bikes all the way to vans, ambulances, tanks, armoured cars, and even battleships and helicopters. Your arsenal also includes many weapons, including grenades, explosives, handguns, and of course, different vehicles have different weapons as well. You can also acquire an enemy uniform and sneak in rather than blast your way through many missions. There are many structures to be found within the game, many containing regular citizens who may be interacted with. You can talk to them, even bribe them. Though there are also more specialised structures which may contain vehicles, ammo, or anything you might find useful to your mission. Hunter is an amazing achievement, and it received good scores overall by critics, and it really does deserve a lot of credit for where it pushed the open world 3D games in the near future. Check out Hunter today. And number 8 on my list is Kabal, or is that Kabul or Kabal? I'm not exactly sure how to pronounce it, but it is a great arcade game on the Amiga, made in 1988 by Topo. Originating in the arcades, Kabal is a shooter where the protagonist runs back and forth along the bottom of the screen, ducking and dodging bullets and grenades from the enemy. The player returns fire by moving a target around the screen, which also moves the player character and may expose him to enemy fire. Kabal was somewhat innovative in that it featured a 3D perspective in which the player character was situated in the foreground with an over-the-shoulder camera view, similar to modern third-person shooters. Players cannot move the character while firing. Holding down the fire button gives you players the control of aiming the cursor, and when moving the character to avoid incoming bullets, the aiming cursor moves along in tandem. It takes a little while to get used to, but it is really fun once the game clicks. This creates the need for a very careful balance between offensive and defensive tactics, separating Kabal from run and gun shooters, which relied more on reflexes. The enemies throughout the 4 levels come thick and fast, and there are so many of them. They include normal foot soldiers, tanks, helicopters, and end-of-level bosses, such as huge tanks and war machines. Just about everything on the screen can be blown up or shot. There are bonus points to be picked up for destroying buildings and weapons, and you can gain extra power-ups such as machine guns and shotguns, and 2-player mode is of course available, and again this is where this game comes to life in my opinion. For reasons unknown, the Amiga and Atari ST versions do not have the original level 2 from the arcades, and this would have had scuba divers and a submarine end boss. They have been removed, which is a bit of a shame. But I still enjoyed this game. The critics, the average reviews for this game are around 74%, so not amazing, but it was just so fun, so playable. I would recommend checking out Kabal. You tell me how it's pronounced today.
Fight!
And in 7th place we have Body Blows, made in 1993 by Team 17. I first played this game on a demo disc that I got from an Amiga magazine, and I played that demo more times than I'd ever like to admit. I had already owned and played Street Fighter 2 on the Amiga for many hours, and this notoriously poor port of a classic arcade game had left me wanting more of the fighting and beat 'em up genre, and in my eyes Team 17 delivered with Body Blows. In 1-player mode you can play as 4 characters. You can be the brothers Dan and Nick, who play identical, or there's Lo Ray, who is a Buddhist monk, and Junior, a failed boxer. The opponents include a ninja warrior, a businessman whose post-fight catchphrase is "I'm sorry about that." The backdrops feature lots of colours and animations, varying from wrestling rings to building sites and beaches. The control is designed around 1-button controllers, especially good for the Amiga then, with special moves generated by pushing in a certain direction and pressing fire, and one super special move by holding fire for a few seconds. The real skill of Body Blows is combining these moves effectively. The obvious reference existing in the game is the last opponent. His name is Max, and you need to fight him twice. Once when he is in his human form, and the second time when he is in his true exoskeleton form named T-17. He looks exactly like the T-800 from the Terminator movie. Maybe not quite as tough, but still a formidable opponent nonetheless. Body Blows was released later on, new versions came out, there was Galactic Body Blows. It was a game I always kept an eye on, I always kept going playing back with my brothers. And in 6th place we have Magic Pockets, made in 1991 by the Bitmap brothers. In Magic Pockets, the player controls the cool Bitmap Kid, who has deep pockets that can store virtually anything. Bitmap Kid's mission is to get back his toys that were stolen by some creatures. The game is a side-scrolling shooter that plays out across 4 worlds inhabited by a variety of enemies. The player can cause more damage to these enemies by charging their shots before firing. The player's weapons also changes its shape and features according to the requirements of each world. The Bitmap Kid has special athletic abilities. He can jump high by stepping on whirlwinds and can even destroy all the creatures he hits after falling from a high place. In addition, he can also ride a bike, dive and even fly thanks to the special items he encounters on his way. An early version of the game was actually used on a British TV children's show called Motormouth, and you could call in, and the game they called it back then was Mighty Mo, and players had to give directions by voice commands, which I assume was interpreted into movements, presumably by someone on the other side of the TV screen. I loved the look of Magic Pockets. It was hard, it looked amazing, it's got that lovely Bitmap Brothers kind of iconic visuals that I adore to this day. It's not the perfect platformer, but it certainly is very eye-opening, and for me, the Bitmap Kid was very cool back in the day. And And in 5th place we have Walker, made in 1993 by DMA Design. Walker looks amazing. It is my favourite style of pixel art. It is so incredible. I used to love playing this game with my brothers. One of us would control the Walker with the joystick and the other would control the cursor where the Walker shot with the mouse. I can play Walker all day long, but what exactly is Walker? Well, it is a classic 2D shooter with the side scrolling from right to left, which is quite unconventional. The player takes control of a gigantic robot, AG-9, codenamed Walker. The mission is simple: guide Walker through the 4 time zones and kill everybody. Every zone is divided into 2 parts. The road is full of trained enemies with one single purpose: to destroy Walker. The players control a mech and you advance through the game's 4 stages, each consisting of 2 levels. You travel from 1944 in Berlin to 2019 Los Angeles, contemporary Middle East, and eventually 2420 Earth during the Great War. I'm not looking forward to that. Throughout the levels, the player uses the mech's machine guns to defeat waves of enemy infantry, tanks and airships. The player advances to the next level upon killing all the enemies standing in your path. When the mech's guns are fired, the temperature indicator rises. When overheated, the guns must cool down over a short time before further use. You do have the ability also to lock on to enemies with your missiles. Unlike most side-scrolling games, as I said earlier, Walker is controlled from right to left, which takes a little bit of while to get used to, but it makes the game a little bit more iconic in my eyes. Interestingly, up until a couple of months before its release, the game was meant to feature 2 different sort of types of levels. The other game would have been sort of an underground platform shooter where you can sort of be zoomed in, you can leave your Walker, you'd be a human, but that was taken out. It didn't quite meet the standard. Some people thought the game was a bit repetitive, but I adored it as a kid. It's hard, but it looks amazing, the sound's great, so guys, Walker, check it out today. And the next game on my list is Pang, also known as Buster Brothers, made in 1989 by Ocean. This amazing arcade game has a great port onto the Amiga, and the game consists of 50 levels. The game can either be 1 or 2 player, and it's played on the same screen. It doesn't move left or right, and the simple objective is to destroy all the balloons, all the bouncy balls, whatever you want to call it. Just wipe out all the balloons on the screen. Your goal is to destroy the balloons which bounce around the playfield. To accomplish this, you can shoot hooks which travel upwards and blow up any balloons they touch. Depending on their size, they split into 2 or even smaller balloons or evaporate if they're at their minimum size. Apart from balloons, some levels also have barriers that have to be destroyed with your hook, since they often block your access to balloons. There are also some barriers which cannot even ever be destroyed, but your character has the ability to climb ladders, but you cannot jump. You can also pick up many power-ups throughout the game. You have the ability to fire 2 shots at once, a hook that attaches to the ceiling and waits till something bumps into it. You can get a gun which has a high rate of fire but cannot destroy barriers. Beside extra weapons, you can also pick up certain things like a clock, which halts the time for a small period, dynamite, which reduces all the balls to the minimum size, thus making you able to reach more points, you get extra lives, and so on. The game's basic idea of shooting balloons to split them into smaller ones actually came from a 1983 title, also by Hudson Soft, called Bubble Buster. This game is so addictive, so fun. I loved it as a kid. I've played the recent remastered version on the Switch, which is still very fun, but you can't beat the classic pixel magic that Pang had on the Amiga. Guys, it's so fun. I really recommend this game. You certainly won't burst your bubble by playing. And my third choice is Premier Manager, made in 1992 by Gremlin. This is the first game in Gremlin's very successful series of football management games. You start off by managing a team in the conference, which is the 5th tier of the English football pyramid, and your aim is simple: progress up the leagues, win trophies, and hopefully improve your existing team or get a better job elsewhere and get to the Premier League, the top of the tree. The features at your disposal include selecting training regimes, planning tactics for each match based on your opponent's strengths and weaknesses, scouting for new players, including youth prospects, and arranging sponsorship and stadium improvements. The transfer system is also a crucial part of the game as you aim to sign players who are broadly rated in each of the main skill areas, up against other teams who want them, and sell off players you don't need anymore. You have an overdraft available, but make sure you do not exceed it. The game can play up to 4 players whose matches all take place at the same time, and you can make tactical changes and substitutions mid-match. I adored this game as a kid. It really did get me into football initially. It actually made me really understand the game better. And for me, I don't know why, but my personal favourite was improving the stadium. A bit like a simulation sim, really. You could make new stands, you could build more training facilities. It was just so much fun. Guys, Premier Manager, really, really fun, especially if you really are into football. And the second game on my list, which I feel is a brilliant, fun game, really interesting, looks so iconic, is Weird Dreams, made in 1988 by Rainbird Software. Weird Dreams is a third-person game with action and puzzle elements. The game contains bizarre levels, unorthodox activities, including feeding a wasp cotton candy, beating up hopping totem poles with fish from the sky, and encountering a skinned chicken in a haunted house. The game comes with a short novel that explains the plot in detail and actually also serves as a copy protection tool. Designer Herman Serrano said he wanted to paint the computer screen instead of a canvas. He thought up all the strange level themes while on vacation from art school. The novel is written by Rupert Goodwins. The scenarios in the game are not based on Serrano's own personal nightmares, but are inspired by the paintings of Salvador Dali, Terry Gilliam's cartoon animations of Monty Python, and any other odd observations he might see. For example, after a visit to the dentist, Serrano developed a phobia of teeth, which is noticeable in the design of the monsters, many of them having mouths with large teeth. Okay, the controls aren't brilliant, it's a bit clunky here and there, but this game just looks so amazing, so inviting. I absolutely adored this game as a kid. It was difficult, it was hard, but there's something about the setting of this amazing game. I never quite completed it as a kid, but it really, really, really drew me in. Guys, Weird Dreams, really worth checking out today. Number 1 on my list of most underrated / hidden gem beauties on the Amiga is Fiendish Freddy's Big Topo Fun, made in 1989 by Mindscape. This game is incredible, it looks so fun and vibrant. I love the cartoon style. I couldn't believe my Amiga had these amazing graphics. I really just wanted to go to the circus after playing this game. The game is fundamentally 6 mini games, but there is a story behind the title. So guys, sit back and enjoy a very interesting story, and your job is to save the circus. So, the Big Topo Fun Circus is in deep trouble. Due tonight is a payment of a $10,000 loan to the Big Greedy Bank. The evening's performance must bring in that money, or the circus will be seized and closed forever. The bank does not play fair though. They send an evil clown called Fiendish Freddy to sabotage the acts. The performance consists of 6 different events. There is a practice mode for single events, and up to 5 players can compete in the full game, but must reach the $10,000 on their own, not together. No teamwork here, guys. The money is awarded by a jury after each act. The game mixes a lot of colour cartoony graphics with dark humour and loads of graphic violence. For example, the tightrope walker gets sliced in 2 through the midriff when hit by a blade, and the juggler is blown to pieces when hit by a bomb. The 6 acts are: number 1, high diving. Horace, the high diver, must jump from a platform and land on a target below. While falling, Horace must be kept spinning by moving the joystick while at the same time staying over the target. Once he is spinning fast enough, he must perform a pose indicated on the screen by pulling the joystick in a certain direction, after which a new pose is required, continuing until Horace hits the target or the ground. If completed successfully, the next dive begins from a higher platform, giving Horace more time to perform the poses, while the target gets consecutively smaller. The next act is juggling. Jeffy Joe drives across the arena on a unicycle and must catch and juggle items thrown to him by his SEAL assistant. The act ends successfully after a time limit is up and fails if Joe drops 5 items. Joe must be manoeuvred so that the items land in his outstretched hands. Pushing fire throws the item in the left hand and moves the items to the right hand to the left. In higher levels, a baby comes into play, which Joe must throw in such a way that it lands in a carriage. Freddy tries to sabotage the act by distracting the SEAL and then throwing dangerous items like bombs and missiles. If either is dropped, the act is over. Bombs, however, can be thrown back to Freddy. Next we have the trapeze. Finola must cross the big top by swinging on bars. She gains momentum through joystick moves and must then jump to the next bar by hitting fire at the correct moment. After a while, Finola must be manoeuvred through obstacles like paper targets and flaming hoops, which sometimes bob up and down. If Finola takes too long, hanging on a bar without going forward, Freddy will arrive flying via helicopter blades and cut the rope. Next we have knife throw. Nancy Knife has been blindfolded and strapped to a rotating wheel along with a number of balloons. There is a time limit and a limited number of knives to throw. The goal is of course to pop all the balloons without hurting Nancy. If she is hit, she screams out and several knives are removed from the stock. Freddy tries to sabotage the act by occasionally throwing smoke bombs for confusion. And next we have the tightrope. Tony Tiptoe tries to cross the tent on a tightrope. He is moved forward by pushing up on the joystick. He then will soon begin to lose his balance and must be put back straight by corrective joystick movements to the left or right. If his balance gets really off, his balance pole turns red and he screams out "Whoa!" If he remains in this position for more than a second, he falls off and it's over. Freddy has several tricks up his sleeve. For example, in this act, if Tony takes too long to cross, he pulls out a cannon and blasts him out of the way. In later levels, he flies across the tent and tries to push Tony off or throws saw blades at him. These can be deflected with the pole by pressing fire. And finally we have Cannonball. Fernando, the human cannonball, climbs into a cannon to be shot across the big top and hopefully land on his target. His assistant, Lisa, loads the cannon with a random amount of gunpowder which determines the thrust. Afterwards, the target must be placed somewhere along the tent, moving it closer or farther away, depending on the amount of gunpowder loaded. Once that is done, Lisa lights the fuse and the cannon starts rotating. It must be stopped at the right angle by pushing fire, which launches Fernando hopefully towards the target and not the ground. Freddy can come into play with this particular act when placed at the target. Taking too long allows Freddy to put a giant cork into the cannon with explosive results. Now there are two main endings to the game depending on whether or not you collect the $10,000 or not. If you fail, the circus is demolished and a building labelled Freddy's Towers is erected in its place. Fiendish Freddy himself appears afterwards, grinning towards the player, carrying a sign with the end on it. If you are successful, and it is a tough game guys, but if you are successful, the ringmaster and the performers decide to get even with Fiendish Freddy by launching a portly diva with a seesaw. Freddy attempts to flee only to be crushed by the fat lady. Afterwards, the Big Topo Fun Circus gets expanded and a blimp can be seen flying through the sky carrying a big banner with the end on it. I love this game. We had so much fun growing up, me and my brothers, with this game. It is so inviting. Like I said earlier, guys, the graphics are amazing. It didn't get the best scores in magazines, but for me, it is up there as one of my favourite games on the Amiga. Well, guys, thank you so much for listening. I hope you enjoyed my list. If you want to check out my official top 10 list of best Amiga games ever released, please do check out the link attached. Now, did any of my games make your personal top 10? Do you think there's any other hidden games I've missed in my 10 rundown? Guys, please share, please like, please subscribe, please shout at me if you think I deserve it. Thank you for watching. Bye bye.